To the shock of no one, fighting super athletes in a cage is dangerous. Doing battle with master strikers, lethal submission artists, and everything in between is always going to lead to serious bodily damage. Some of the sport's absolute finest are among its biggest victims. Of the many legendary fighters the UFC has boasted on its roster over the years, here are just 5 who suffered horrific injuries in combat. Number 5, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. UFC 140 was a dark day for Minotauro. The ace of Pride FC was not the kind of guy who was comfortable tapping out. Admirable as that may be, it landed him in grim trouble on this night. Despite a vicious start, Nogueira found himself trapped in a Kimura lock midway through round 1. Refusing to give up, Nogueira's arm wound up getting mangled before the referee finally stepped in. A seemingly unfazed Big Nog just stared blankly at his broken arm as Mir celebrated his win. In the years since the fight, he has provided a multitude of questionable excuses for falling to Mir a second time. Everything from the referee telling him off for hitting Mir in the back of the head to aesthetically wanting a pleasing finish has been to blame. Regardless, for the real reason for Nogueira's doomed attempt at submitting to Mir, what's not up for debate is the stomach-churning state of his arm in the final bell. Number 4. Conor McGregor. This is the latest in a long line of horrendous leg breaks in the history of UFC. Conor McGregor is currently sidelined owing it to a brutal setback suffered at UFC 264. McGregor's rubber match with Dustin Poirier went off the rails near the end of round 1. The Irishman sustained a broken tibia, rendering him unfit to keep fighting. A visibly devastated McGregor then launched into a tirade that is likely to get replayed for decades to come. Obviously in intense agony, McGregor being interviewed at all at this time seemed questionable, right? When asked if Poirier's theory of a checked kick causing the break was true, McGregor exclaimed, "That was no check." Funnily enough, the Good Fight Foundation had something similar to say about McGregor prior to the fight. The UFC's biggest star was eventually stretchered out of the venue. He's expected to return to action in 2022. The sight of him stepping back onto his fractured leg was, it was gross. Number 3, Alistair Overeem. The Demolition Man came out of his war with Rozenstruik looking like he had been mauled by a lion. The Dutch kickboxing ace took a deadly right hand to the face. With just seconds before bell time, Rozenstruik tore Overeem's upper lip apart. The fight was over with an infuriating 4 seconds to go. Overeem was painfully close to getting the fight to go to the judges when he absorbed the worst blow of his career. The horribly maimed Overeem was rushed to an emergency room where plastic surgeons put his face back together. In a testament to the advancements in modern medical science, Overeem barely even had a scar just a few weeks later. Number 2, Jon Jones. If Chael Sutton had made it out of round 1, we would have seen a new light heavyweight champion at UFC 159. Jones secured the win with a devastating series of elbows and punches 4.5 minutes in. An elated Bones Jones quickly realized something had gone horribly wrong shortly after the bell. While maintaining control on the mat, Jones' big toe had gotten caught in a hole on the mat. His subsequent movement tore the whole thing apart, breaking the bone completely. As the adrenaline wore off, it was clear that Jones was in a good deal of discomfort as he gave a post-fight interview with Joe Rogan. Sutton was so close, yet so far away from finally winning the big one here. Had this gone to round 2, Jones would not have been cleared to continue given the vital appendage that was hanging by a thread. Number 1, Anderson Silva. The leg break, heard round the world, occurred at UFC 168 in December 2013. The long-term middleweight kingpin bit off more than he could chew at UFC 162 against Chris Weidman. The Spider found himself knocked out with his hands behind his back. Needless to say, Silva had learned his lesson by the rematch and was taking things more seriously this time around. Great as that was, by round 2, Silva didn't even have a leg to stand on. The striker, who for many years was considered pound for pound the best, suffered a broken leg off a checked kick. Silva's leg was essentially cracked in half. While Silva did make a return eventually, he was never quite the same fighter, and officially won just one more fight before leaving the UFC in November 2020. Bizarrely enough, Weidman went on to suffer almost the exact same injury earlier this year.